Exodus. Exodus chapter 1. Joseph has passed away and made those that were with him there to make a promise that when God was to take them out of the kingdom, that they would, or take them out of the kingdom of Egypt and bring them into the promised land, that the Lord would take his bones with them, that they would take the bones with them when the Lord took them out of there. So they're just now getting into Israel, though. From the scriptures, we know that they'll be there for about 400 and some odd years. In Egypt, yeah. And so here we are in chapter 1 of Exodus. It says, "Now these are the names of the children of Israel which came into Egypt. Every man in his household came with Jacob: Reuben, Simeon, Levi, and Judah, Issachar, Zebulun, and Benjamin, Dan and Naphtali, Gad and Asher, all the souls that came out of the loins of Jacob were 70 souls, for Joseph was in Egypt already. And Joseph died, and his brethren, and all of his brethren, and all that generation. And the children of Israel were fruitful and increased abundantly, and multiplied and waxed exceeding mighty, and the land was filled with them. Now there rose up a new king over Egypt, which knew not Joseph. And he said unto his people, Behold, the people of the children of Israel are more and mightier than we." So imagine this for just a moment. Here's this small little, just a family, 70, including all of their aunts and uncles and everything, and it came to 70 total people. But in those 400 years that they were in Egypt, things changed. That 70 grew into a multiple until the point where they were outnumbering the Egyptians living in the land. You see, apparently the Egyptians were not as prolific at having children as the Israelites were. And so it says, "And the children of Israel were fruitful and increased bountifully, and multiplied and waxed exceeding and mighty, and the land was filled with them." Now verse 8, it says, "Now there arose a new king over Egypt, which knew not Joseph." A new king, a new Pharaoh, who knew not Joseph. "And he said unto his people, Behold, the people of the children of Israel are more or mightier than we. Come, and let us deal wisely with them, lest they multiply. And it come to pass that when there falleth out any war, they join also unto our enemies, and fight against us, and so get them out of the land." Now, his original thought was to get them out of the land. It says it right here. That was his attempt. But for whatever reason, I'm sure there was some advisors that he had says, "Well, yeah, but who's going to do all of our menial tasks if we get rid of them?" You know what I'm saying? We hear that about a lot in this country, don't we? Well, who's going to do the jobs that other people don't want to do? You know, kind of hear those certain things. Always comes to pass. There's some people that, the Egyptians had it good. They could be lazy and not have to do a bunch of hard work. But he wanted to get them out of the land. That's what he was saying here. Unless the enemy come and fall and they join the other side, and we'll lose the battle because Israel is mightier than we are. Verse 11 here, it says, "Therefore they did set over them taskmasters to afflict them with their burdens, And they built for Pharaoh treasured cities, Pithom and Ramses. Yeah, I don't care what any of the archaeologists say. Those pyramids and all of those things that are in the land of Ramses, they say were built precisely, so precisely that they couldn't fit a piece of paper between the stones, and they're huge. They don't know how they got there and everything like that. I have a feeling, and I believe, that the Israelis built them for them. It was a government project to keep them busy. You see? And so, here they are, they're building these treasure cities, it says. Now, the archaeologists would tell you that those big, huge things were tombs for them to bury themselves in. I think it's the other way around. I think that they were treasure places, and then when they got old, they're like, bury me with my treasure. I think it's really the way it happened. Why? Because the Bible says that they were treasure cities. And wouldn't it make more sense that they wanted to be buried with all their possessions? And I don't know about all the other hocus pocus ideas that they believed that they were going to take it to the afterlife and all that other junk. That might be imaginations of some archaeologists. But here we are, verse 12. It says, but the more they afflicted them, the more they multiplied and grew. That's because the Lord blesses his people. Do you know that? And the more that you afflict them, the more they're going to be blessed. Because the Lord will bless us. The Lord blesses his people. And the more they afflicted them, the more they multiplied and grew, and they were grieved because of the children of Israel. And the Egyptians made the children of Israel serve with rigor. They wanted to see how far that they would take it. You know, it's kind of like a bully. A bully keeps pressing you and pressing you and pressing you until finally you turn around and you smack them. You know? That's what it's about. That's the way bullies work. And then who do they blame? Oh, it's your fault. It's your fault. You threw the first punch. The Egyptians made the children of Israel serve with rigor, and they made their lives bitter with hard bondage, in mortar and in brick, in all manner of service in the field. And all their service wherewith they made them serve was with rigor. And the king of Egypt spake unto the Hebrew midwives, which the name of one was Shiphrah, and the name of the other was Puah. And they said, and he said, when ye do the office of midwife to the Hebrews, to the Hebrew women, and see them upon the stools, if it be a son, then ye shall kill him. But if it be a daughter, then shall she live. But the midwives feared God, and did not as the king of Egypt had commanded them, but saved the men children alive. You think about it for a moment. These are midwives are women too. They know what it's like to have a child. They're going to go kill a child. So they saved the man child alive, and the midwife said unto, verse 18, and the king of Egypt called for the midwives, and he said unto them, why have ye done this thing, and have saved the men children alive? And the midwives said unto Pharaoh, because the Hebrew women are not as the Egyptian women, for they are lively, and are delivered ere the midwives come unto them. That was their excuse. But there may be some truth to it as well, because you think about it, when you've got one sect of the population who's got life of ease, and they don't have to work hard for a living, and they're having their children, and when they go to have their babies, they're like, oh man, this is terrible, because they've had everything so little princess all their life, you know. And then you have this other sect that was good, hard working, and maybe they remember their parents talking about how they lost children and how dreadful it was and everything. And so here they are, they're having their children. God's blessing them too so that they can have more children. And they just have their child before she even gets there. And there's probably some truth to that. I don't know exactly how much, but they had the children. And they had a lot of children because they're starting to outpace the Egyptian. Same thing happens in this country. I mean, how many women of ease that have got themselves a career want to have children? And if they did, that's the last time I'm ever having a child. That was terrible. I'm never going to do that again. You see? That was the way Egypt had gotten. You see? They got the problems with that in Japan today. I was reading an article just this, well, it was a couple months ago, but I was reading this article how the Japanese are trying to promote women to being motherly and to wanting to stay home and not get a career and not go out into the workplace, because they spent all of this time promoting women into the workplace, and now they're starting to decline in population, and to the point that it's actually troublesome. The Japanese are very proud people. They're proud of their heritage, but it's going away, and foreigners are moving in and getting these jobs. You see, and they're worried. And why? Well, the Japanese population had been raised with pampering and making a career and not doing what God had intended for a husband and wife and raising a family and all that. It caused something unnatural, just like Egypt had done here, and their population began to decline as the Israelite population increased. And think about it, the Egyptians, or I should say the Israelites, are immigrants in Egypt. They're not from there, you see. And so the wives here, these midwives that they had that would help with the birth of children, said that they're more lively than Egyptian women, and they're delivered ere the midwives come unto them. Therefore God dealt well with the midwives, and the people multiplied and waxed very mighty. Nothing had changed. And I want to point out here that this politician, he was the king of Egypt, but he was basically the politician of the land. He tried to do it sneaky. He tried to do it underhanded without anybody knowing. The only person who knew was those midwives and him. Maybe some of the people in his realm there knew. Some of the higher ups. But he wasn't going to let those Israelites know. But then when he realized that his little sneaky plan to eliminate the Israelites by number wasn't going to work, he decided to do another way. And it says, it came to pass as the midwives feared God that he made them houses. And Pharaoh charged all his people, saying, every son that is born ye shall cast into the river, and every daughter you shall save alive. You see, he's now left from being just a underhanded, sneaky way of doing it, to being right out bold. This is what I want you to do. I want you to throw any man-child into the river. The river was full of crocodiles, you see. They were going to feed the children to animals. Not much different than they do today. For the ease of their life, so that they can have not have to be burdened by a child and have to raise a child. They just kill it. Just kill it. the Bible talks about that in the last days that women will leave what there's naturally built into them. I'm paraphrasing it. But women are designed, they are made in such a way to want to love and nurture and coddle a little baby and raise that baby up. There's a unpleasant thing that's required. They have to carry that child around for 9 months, which isn't pleasant. And then they have to give birth to that child, which is definitely not pleasant. It's not something easy. But the Bible also is true in the fact that it says that after that woman has gone through that sorrow of giving birth and is holding that little child in her arms, all of that anguish has gone away. It's worth it all. You see? If it wasn't worth it all, they wouldn't want to have children. Again, you see what I'm saying? It's because it's worth it all. But here, this king is killing the babies. Do you think God's happy with that? Is God happy with this country because we're killing so many babies? Maybe not outwardly where everybody can see it, throwing them out in the river where the crocodiles are eating them. But they're still probably even more gruesome in the laboratory. You see what I'm saying? Just gruesome things that they do to the unborn children. And come up with crazy ideas that a life is not precious until it's born. You know? This is crazy mentality for women who think that way, that think that just because it's conceived in the womb that it's not alive. It's got a beating heart, doesn't it? When it is killed, it does not cry out in pain, does it? They've actually got a movie that I saw once when I was younger called Silent Scream. When a baby is being torn from the womb, is crying in pain. They can't say anything because they don't have a voice of the embryonic fluids in their lungs. It's a terrible thing. It's a terrible crisis that this country is going through. You don't think this country isn't going to be judged? I tell you right now, the judgment's already coming upon this country because of the sins that it's doing. You think it's bad now, you ain't seen nothing yet. And guess what's going to happen? When the rapture happens, it's going to get even worse. It's going to get even worse. Because those that love the Lord and know the Lord as their Savior won't have any voice anymore because they won't be on this earth anymore. There'll only be wickedness. Those that don't know the Lord as their Savior are wicked. And those that stand up in high places and preach that you can kill unborn babies, but yet say that they're a Christian, they're a liar, they're wicked. It's wickedness. And everybody knows it. It's like the elephant in the room. They talk about the elephant in the room. It's an elephant that you can't miss as you're tripping over it. This country is going to pay for these atrocities. Whether it's legal or not, it's illegal according to God's law. You see? But here the nation of Israel, it's giving, just in that chapter 1, a span of 400 years. Now this book is called the book of Exodus. And we'll read next week in the chapter, but second chapter, that this young boy was born and properly named by the queen or the princess of Egypt. His name was Moses because she drew him out of the river but his name was really named Moses prophetically by God because he would draw his people out of Egypt and into the promised land. And I can tell you right now, Jesus is our Moses. And he's coming soon, and there's going to be as it says, the last trump shall sound, and the dead in Christ shall rise first, and we that are alive will go to meet him in the air. It'll happen in a twinkling of an eye. And this earth is going to be perplexed about where all of these people have gone. What a day it's going to be. I like to fly, I like to go on airplanes and stuff like that. I don't know. You ever seen these guys that jump off of cliffs, with a parachute? Call them cliff divers. And they got these 360 cameras that they can put on their chest, and they jump off the cliff. I was watching one the other day, and my stomach went, whoa, because you're getting right in on it. He's jumping off this cliff, and there's nothing underneath.
Things that have very little.
Yeah, like wings. They look like a bat. Yeah, it's just crazy. They have a parachute too. That's the end. Otherwise, they against the ground. But anyway, I always wonder about the rapture. If there's gonna be a lot of us going, oh, because yeah. I don't know about you, but I'm going to be looking up. Just keep your eye on the goal so you don't have to look down and see how far it is to fall.
The Bible says it happens at the speed of light.
I know, it's going to be instant. But it's kind of fun to think about. Anyway, it says, Pharaoh charged all his people, saying, every son that is born ye shall cast into the river, and every daughter shall live. I wonder, it doesn't really say here. I'm sure he meant the nation of Israel here. Were the Egyptians throwing their children into the river too? Their boys? I don't know. Doesn't sound like it. But anyway, it says it. He says he charged all his people, saying, every son that is born ye shall cast into the river, and every daughter ye shall save alive. Anyway, we'll get onto that to the next year, but that's what we have to say in the chapter 1. We'll get into more detail in chapter 2. Let's all stand.
The rest of the story.
Yep, and the rest of the story. I don't think God's pleased with this country killing all of its babies. We've got lots of crises for it. We've got a mountain of debt that needs to be paid off. Imagine what it would be like if all those babies that had died were still alive today. There wouldn't be a social security crisis. It would still be having people that more working, putting it into those that were retired. You see, a lot of our problems are caused by the bad decisions that those who are so-called leaders and those so-called in legal positions make bad decisions all the time. And we have to pay for the consequences. It's coming. It's coming. Just like wicked Haman, the consequences came for him. Let's have a word of prayer.